Northland Forestry Nursery began in 2004. Since then, it's expanded to cover 16 hectares, growing 7 million pine tree seedlings each year. Kevin Strawbridge worked for 20 years at Carter Holt Harvey as both a forest and marketing manager before he and wife Christine moved to Kaikoui. In 2001, they purchased their own land to start up the nursery.
I grow pine tree seedlings for Northland mostly, although I do send some further south. And we only grow radiata pine. We've got about 12 arable hectares on 18.5 hectare property, and next door we lease 7 hectares of land from Amapi Rangahama Trust, and that's about 5.5 hectares of arable land. This year we're growing 7 million seedlings. 4 years ago, 2.5, 3 million was about where we're at, and the last couple of years we've gone from 3.5 to 5 to 6.5 or 7 this year. This is the back end of a Summit seed sower invented by Forest Research Institute in Rotorua. It was built around a vacuum drum which was developed to sow the irregular shaped seed that radiata pine is, to try and get it to fall accurately in the beds to give even spacing and sow regular shaped seedlings. The caged roller that supports the coulters, which are putting the groove in the soil that the seed falls into, is my little invention. They come standard with a solid roller. In many soils, the soil builds up on that roller, and as a result it lifts the coulters further and further out of the ground, and your seed gets sowed shallower and shallower, and as a result you get really poor germination. So after applying myself for about 2 years, sitting there thinking about it and pondering, I thought, eureka, why not just put a caged roller in there, and then the soil can't build up on it. So I got it made by a local engineer out of stainless steel, and it just works beautifully. This year we're actually harvesting over 1 million seedlings in May, which is more than we harvested in our first year. It means having all the conditioning done for the seedlings so that they are in good condition to go out. At the same time, you've got to be able to produce enough seedlings per day to meet the forestry company's requirements to plant, because they've got to be finished by the end of that window. And you have other restrictions as well. The planting crews in Northland are very well respected, and they've actually got some big contracts down in the East Cape in August. So this year they want to be finished at the end of July, so it puts even more pressure on us to produce more and more each month. What they're doing is pulling the trees out of the ground, checking to see that they're up to specifications for diameter, health, whether or not they're multi-leaded, they cull those out. And then they're gathering them into handfuls of 6, trimming the roots to between 7 and 10 centimetres, and packing them into boxes and counting 100 into a box. These boxes of trees will be held over the weekend because we have a huge outpouring of seedlings on a Sunday for the planters in the forest on a Monday. They stay no more than 72 hours in a chiller. Hot, we call them lifting hot, go out into the forest within 24 hours, and the people in the foresters try to plant them within 3 days, 72 hours, once they get to the forest. By the time lifting comes, the nurseryman has to have all his work finished. The conditioning has to be done, the undercutting of the roots, the wrenching of the roots, shaking the seedlings in the ground, cutting the roots on the side, it's called lateral root pruning with the discs. The topping has to be done ideally 6 weeks ago. So you're actually gazing into this crystal ball, figuring out what this whole lot of different customers with a whole lot of different seed lots and product types want in these time periods in the future, having everything ready at that staggered amount of time. So these are the seedlings that the forestry companies really like. You can see the white of the mycorrhiza on them, which is highly desirable. Mycorrhiza are very important for seedling growth. They basically can't grow without it. The seedling root length has been undercut with a reciprocating undercutter, so we try and get it between 7 and 10 centimetres, so that when the guys doing the lifting gather them into a bunch, they tap the topsoil off, and then chop the long lateral roots off that are running parallel with the rows, because we've already cut the ones that are in between the rows. They haven't cut the taproot, which is just starting to form a bud, so that when it gets planted in the forest, it's got buds forming on the lateral roots that are being cut with the lateral root pruner. It's got buds forming on the tips that have been cut with the undercutter, and it's got buds forming on the tops after we've topped them. Our biggest pests in the nursery are onion thrips of all things. We do have a bit of a problem with the Phytophthora in some parts of the nursery because radiata pine hates wet feet, and so you'll get a Phytophthora infection if you get like heavy summer rains and it doesn't drain away quick enough. So to that end, we're actually going to put some in-ground drainage into the worst blocks this year. As for weeds, after sowing the crop, we apply oxyfluorophene, which gives us about 3 months of control. Very good chemical, very soft chemical. If we've got really heavy weed infestation, which can happen in a wet summer, we'll put oxyfluorophene again over the crop, but at lower rates. Or else I use tubethylazine, and I use one application of tubethylazine. Otherwise, we actually employ quite a few people hand weeding. I'd rather hand weed than apply the chemicals relentlessly. What we're looking at here is a sacrificial crop. There's no intention to sell these seedlings to be planted in a forest or as shelter or anything like that. The idea is to establish the mycorrhizal population here so I can grow good quality seedlings for my customers. The fungi is introduced into the soil by means of spraying. What I do is I collect the fruiting bodies of the fungi from the established crop and store them in the fridge and then make them into a liquid product that I can spray on over the seedlings just as they emerge. And after about 4 or 5 weeks, the seedlings have finally taken them up. I spray regularly once a week, and then this is the result. We've got good healthy seedlings. If I hadn't have sprayed, they'd be stunted little yellow things about that high. This one here is a very mature fruiting body with mature spores in it. It's a nice brown colour. And these are very young fruiting bodies that are just starting to grow. They'll get to be as big as maybe 5 centimetres across. Because it's Northland, we've got like 3 or 4 soil types in the nursery, but it's very friable, very loose soil. It's deep phase volcanic clay loam. There's a bit of gravel in this part of it. The topsoil's easily 30 centimetres deep. The subsoil is over 17 metres to the basalt base. So it's very free draining, it's very important. So you can see a really strong mycorrhizal association there. Not unexpected because the seedlings are so vigorous and healthy. We're going to strip all these seedlings out and stick them in a pile to mulch away, and the mycorrhiza will stay in the soil for the commercial crop that we'll grow next year. And it'll be a really vigorous, beautiful crop.
This program was made with funding from New Zealand On Air.